What's up, guys? Welcome back to Hammer Time DIY. I'm your host, Taj, and thank you so much for tuning into this episode. We're going to be taking on a project of upgrading from this plastic store-bought shelving unit for my garage and upgrading to something more custom, more luxurious, more built-in. I'm going to be your guide for how-to. I'm going to give you step-by-step instructions, material, price breakdown, everything you'll need to complete this project, and I'm going to give you some beautiful before and after shots. Without further ado, guys, let's jump into today's video. And yeah, let's make something awesome. All right, let's go. Be wondering why I'm taking this project on at all. We have functioning storage shelves. The reason we're taking this project on is because I'm an auto enthusiast outside of my many other hobbies, and I love cars. So the garage to me is a sacred space. It's where I work, it's where I hang out, all of those things. As you can see, I started to kind of customize my garage. I have a modern wooden slat wall. I kind of paused it there because I'm hesitant as a homeowner at times to take any steps further. I want to kind of avoid over customization as I don't want to devalue my home. However, screw that. This is my house. I'm going to do it my style. All right, guys. So I'm going to start this project off by moving my shelving unit over from my garage into my workshop. I am going to reduce, reuse, and recycle for this step. It's still pretty structurally sturdy, so there's no real need to throw it away. So that being said, it's going to get a second life. And then I'm also going to start by prepping this area, and I'm going to paint first. That'll make it a lot easier down the road. Not having to paint around the shelves themselves. So I'm using Bear's cracked pepper and a satin finish. I use this color in a lot of my projects. It honestly is one of the richest black colors you can use. It's not too dark, gives a really luxurious high-end feel, and I like to use it a lot. So that's what I'll be doing in this step. Guys, stay tuned, and we'll move into our next step shortly. All right, let's go. All right, guys, at this step, I'm being extra careful. I'm using my stud finder to find the studs behind the wall. There is plumbing and electrical behind this wall. I know it because it's my workshop. So I'm being extra careful not to puncture anything because that could get really expensive really quickly. All right, guys, going over materials really quickly here. I am using 2x4s as well as sand plywood and 1/2-inch thickness. Nothing special, nothing crazy. Just had Home Depot slice it down to the width that I want for my dimensions. All right, we're moving quickly here. So I'm setting up all my 2x4s, and what I'm going to do is cut all of my length 2x4s. For this scenario, I'm cutting it down to 36 inches. So I want my shelves to be 18 inches wide, 36 inches long. So what you see me cutting in this video is 36 inches long. I'm just making sure to clamp everything down. Using my speed square, of course, to make 90-degree cuts. We want everything as straight as possible. And for this, I need 8 because I'm making 4 shelves. So I'm going to cut down 8 of my 2x4s to that specific length of 36 inches. So watch me work. All right, guys, so we are now in our next step, and we're going to begin to cut down our support bracing for our frames for our shelves. These are going to be 15 inches long. I came up with that basically by doing some simple math. 2x4s are actually 1.5 inches thick. So 1.5 plus 1.5 is equal to 3. Therefore, if I want a dimension of 18, I'll need to cut these down to 15 inches. So it'll be 15 plus 3. That being said, I'm going to chop these down really quickly, and then we can roll into cutting down our plywood. All right, guys, so I'm not going to bore you to death with the dimensions in this part of the video. As you can see, I'm starting to chop down my 1/2-inch ply into sections. So what I'm going to be covering is the top portion, the sides, and the front. The back part you don't have to worry about, and the bottom is totally up to you. Initially, I was going to do the bottom portion, but I decided, you know what, if I want to hang something from the bottom of these shelves, or if I want to move them around, I want them to kind of be modular. You'll see what solution I have for covering the bottom later on in the video. right, so we reached a point where we can now begin assembly of our frames for our shelves. Now, what I'm going to be doing is taking my 15-inch cuts. I made 12 of these. We're going to be doing one outside, one directly in the middle, and one at the end. That's going to build a nice frame, tons of support. I'm going to be using these trim head screws, okay? These are long. I want a lot of support, so these are 3 1/8. So that being said, I'm going to be using these to fasten this in. Should provide a ton of support. Should be super sturdy. And I'm also using my speed square here just to make sure everything is nice and square and on the same level. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this step of building out our frames. Let's go. All right, guys, so you want to attach the plywood to the 2x4 frames that we made earlier. Again, keep in mind, I'm only doing the top, the sides, and the front to give it a nice fascia and to make it look a lot more thick. I cut these specifically to give that visual illusion. Again, the bottom and the back are totally optional. You don't need to do it. And to attach it, I am using trim head screws. These are about 1 inch long. All right, let's go. All right, my good people, thank you for staying tuned in so long. All right, so we got these shelves built. They look great. I'm excited to hang these up. But before we do that, I'm not going to leave these in a kind of like raw form. My goal is to have these look as clean as possible. And I think they look really good for a utilitarian kind of like shelf, but we're meeting form with function. So that being said, we want the best possible finish. To clean up those mistakes, we're going to be using some wood glue combined with our sawdust that we picked up off of the shop floor. And that serves as a stainable option for wood most times. It fills in most of the things. That being said, we're going to do this. It sets up in about 30 minutes. After that, we can come back and sand 80 all the way up to 220. And then after that, we can go back into the garage and get these bad boys mounted up. And I'm excited for that step. All right, so if you made it this far, congratulations. I'm excited for this part. This is the mounting step. So for mounting, we're going to be using a combination of lag bolts as well as cabinet screws, both of which are 3 inches. I listed those earlier in the video. I'm also using my laser level and just kind of eyeballing it here to see what works for my arms and everything. You can see what I'm doing here is a little bit of a pre-drill, marking everything down with my pencil, and then coming back, applying that to the wall, pre-drilling, kind of like a push and pull until I find out where that stud actually is. And again, just securing it in the best I can with that lag bolt with the flat washer. So kind of wash, rinse, repeat for all 4 of these until they're super secure. This is a bit of a tedious process, I'll be honest, and it was very, very tough on the shoulder. My rotator cuff was screaming at me to please, like, whatever you're doing, man, stop, because it was very difficult. So that being said, you're going to hang these up. Make sure they're mounted to your studs. That's going to give you the most strength. And I even ended up securing it to the white side of the wall, as you can see there, with some of my cabinet screws, just pushing it through and adding in some strength. So that being said, again, if you have someone to help you with this, I would definitely recommend it. It can be a bit tough to lift these up, get it level, and then have it hit the stud at the same time. But with a lot of swearing, a lot of patience, I was able to get it done, luckily, for all 4 of these shelves. So what you see me doing in this section of the video is actually starting to paint the underside of the cabinets. I went with the same color as the wall, just a nice black. That gives it a floating effect. And then also you can see me start to apply the stain. This is super exciting. It adds a lot of depth and color. If I could do anything differently, maybe I would have done something like a natural wood filler. And the reason I'm saying that is because there is some splotchiness, but again, these are utilitarian, so I don't care that much about the finish. I do like the KONA. It gives it kind of like a rugged texture look. This is the closest thing to like a dark chestnut without being too dark. This is by Varathane. It is a one step, and I applied this with my foam brush. So again, super excited for this part of the video. And for the final reveal, you guys can see we have our floating shelves. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. That is a wrap. I'll see you next time on Hammer Time DIY.